Hi. So I am here with a client who would like to cultivate a healthy relationship with tobacco. And we are recording this because we thought it might be helpful for other people. So thank you for being here and thank you for allowing us to record this. Hi.
Hi.
Hmm. Okay. So, what we're going to be doing is bringing awareness to places where we don't currently have awareness. And so, what I want to do is take 3 deep breaths with you, and let's find the place inside of ourselves where that awareness lives. Okay. So, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Can make a little bit of sound on the exhale if you like. So how are you feeling?
I feel good. I feel ready.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to point out is that our brain does a really good job of filtering out stimuli that we've decided isn't interesting to us. So, like, our nose is always in our field of vision. And if you look right now out straight ahead of you and ask your brain to show you the things that you've been missing, you'll see your nose. It's right there. And you've been seeing that your entire life, and your brain's been filtering it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with tobacco and any other substance and any other pattern where we go unconscious, the same kind of thing happens. So, the very first time you smoked a cigarette, do you remember what it was like?
I do.
Yeah, you want to tell me about it?
I actually wrote about this a few weeks ago, but yeah, the first time that I smoked a cigarette, it was during a time. It was the first time I truly felt worthless as
Mm.
a person. I was against cigarettes my whole life, fought with my parents over it, over them smoking and hated it. And then at this particular instance was just the first time I guess I had felt worthless, because of another person, and their cigarettes his cigarettes were just sitting there, and it was almost like I was smoking it as like a punishment to myself, like, well, fuck it, and I didn't think I would keep doing it though after that.
Okay. So, there's a lot of emotion that's packed up in this too. Um, do you remember the sensations when you first lit the cigarette? Do you remember the temperature? Do you remember the taste? Do you remember enjoying it or being repulsed by it?
um I remember being like shocked by it, like how harsh it was. And I do remember that feeling soothing to me at the time, just the harshness of it.
Okay.
Um, I I was also repulsed by it,
Mhm.
but it just, like I said, the harshness really kind of made me feel better at the time.
Okay.
I don't know why.
So, in the same way that your brain filtered out your nose for you, it's also been filtering out the harshness of the cigarettes. It's also been filtering out that repulsion. So, because the first thing that we feel when we smoke a cigarette is not really any different than the next time, other than there's an addictive quality to it, and that we've
Mhm.
made a choice to do this disgusting thing anyway. Like, that's really what there is. And since we've chosen to do it, and our brain doesn't want us to suffer every time we choose to do something, it changes our experience so that we can manage it, right? So, the thing here is really to just to bring awareness to where there's been unconsciousness. And then you will cultivate a healthy relationship with tobacco if you keep bringing loving awareness to it. And I can tell from the way that you were talking about how you were comforted by that harshness that maybe loving awareness is not something that is a practice for you at the moment. Is that accurate? Okay. So
Probably definitely not toward myself. That's always been a battle.
I know you play an instrument. And so when you play, are you playing from a place of loving awareness, or are you playing from a place of punishment? What are you playing from a place of?
I would say loving awareness.
Okay. Yeah, that was my guess. Because I've heard you play. From from that place, from the place that floods you and floods your audience when you're playing, you can also do all kinds of other things in your life, smoking being one of them. So I know it sounds strange to have smoking being in alignment with loving awareness, but the thing about the healthy relationship is that when it truly is in alignment with loving awareness, then it's perfectly fine to do it. There's no reason not to. The only reason not to smoke is when it feels like that it's not self-respectful self-care, right? So when we smoke automatically without thinking about it, when we allow our brains to filter out all of that information, we can get into a pattern of really just doing it and letting our brain do the work of protecting us. So
Mm.
if we enter into a relationship with it where we're fully aware of what we're doing, where we're taking in all of the sensations, where we're not doing it unconsciously in any way, there's no reason not to smoke. The problem is that when we go unconscious with things that are addictive, we allow them to speak louder than us. We allow them to tell us what we need to do, and that's really what doesn't work. So how's that all? How's that all landing for you?
Yeah, it does make sense. The times that it's the most challenging though is just when everything is so stressful that I mean, I it just that it feels like it relieves all of that, maybe sometimes pain or whatever, whatnot. And so that feels like at the time loving myself because I'm relieving myself of all of the stress, even if it's an illusion. But it's actually not loving myself because I'm poisoning myself. But so I don't really know how to get past that one.
Yeah. Well, what we can do is we can work on unpacking it, because there's three separate issues there. One is if you're in a habit of smoking regularly, then when you don't smoke, the intolerance starts to build up, right? So, like 5 minutes after you've smoked your last cigarette, there's like a ticking clock that starts before you're going to need to smoke your next one to feel okay. So that's part of it. That's the addictive part, right? And so it's just like the negative reinforcement in your car when your seatbelt beeps until you plug it in. It's the same thing with the smoking. It's like you're going to feel the effects of the withdrawal until you go smoke another cigarette. And then the relief of the withdrawal feelings creates a negative feedback loop, as opposed to positive feedback, like, BF Skinner kind of negative positive. Um, and so the unpleasant stimulus is removed. So that's part of it. That's an addictive, real, physiological, not illusion, totally not making it up. Smoking a cigarette relaxes you because it removes the symptoms of withdrawal. That's part of it. Okay. Another part of it is that when I smoke a cigarette, I have said to my brain, I want you to filter out all of the negative stimuli. I don't want to taste it. I don't want to feel the heatness on my lips. I don't want to feel the butane from the lighter. I don't want to feel the stains, see the stains on my fingers. I don't want to feel all of this stuff. I don't want to feel what it's doing to my skin. I don't want all that. And along with numbing, blocking all of that out, you'll block out anything else that's going on. So you can smoke and go into that unconscious state and no longer be conscious of the stress. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And then
Pretty crazy.
the third part of it is that the actual effect of nicotine is a stimulus, but there's something about the physiological response to that stimulus or a stimulant that actually is calming. So you've got really powerful brain stuff happening and really powerful chemical stuff happening and really powerful behavioral stuff happening that make that really difficult, right? And there's all kinds of strategies you can use to cope with it. You can smoke something else. You can make your own smoking blend that's not full of nicotine, that's not full of carcinogens, and you could smoke that. You can just do a simple substitution. That's a thing. You can chew on a carrot stick. There's all kinds of. I'm sure you've read all of these things, if not tried all of them.
So really it's just me being like stubborn that I'm not going to try something else. I'm just going to do this because it's easier.
No,
But
because it's again, that's only one piece, right? There's a biological piece and there's a really powerful behavioral programming piece, right? So it's definitely not just stubborn. You know, you have a coping mechanism that's been working for you for a long time and now it's not working for you. And it takes a lot of courage to say, the thing I'm doing is not working for me and I'm ready to address it, right? It takes a tremendous amount of courage. That's not about being stubborn. That's not about anything, right? And I don't want to take a coping mechanism away from you that's working for you. This, you just came to me and said, hey, this isn't working for me anymore, right? So,
yeah,
and
I
coping
feel
mechanisms are
ready.
real. And it's socially, you know, I mean, it's becoming less socially a thing, but I smoked for, I don't even know how many years. You know, if you weren't a smoker, you didn't get a break at one of the jobs I had. So I was smoking because otherwise I didn't get to go outside and breathe. And that's the other thing. Probably the only time you would take intentional deep breaths is when you're smoking a cigarette. So that's the other thing. When you get the signal that you want a cigarette, take the same deep breaths that you would take, but without the smoke, right? Just drop into those deep breaths that we did to find that place of the loving awareness. And then ask from that loving awareness, do I actually want a cigarette? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Um, and you know, I mean, smoking, we're in the middle of a time in our lives where, you know, things are very strange out there, you know, and whatever coping mechanisms people are using, they make sense. It's like, this is not a good time to be quitting smoking. You know, I mean, this is like a dumpster fire time in our lot, like in the global history of things, right? The only reason you're tackling it now is because you said, hey, this really doesn't work for me anymore, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not an easy time. It's not a good time. It's just it's the time that you've chosen because it's the time that it needs to be. Yeah. So you can be really gentle with yourself about this. This is really, really hard. And it's incredibly addictive. Tobacco is more addictive than heroin. You know, well, the nicotine in it's more addictive than heroin. It's more difficult to break a smoking habit than it is to break just about any other habit. The food things probably are only harder because you can't stop eating, you know.
yeah.
So, all right. All that being said, how are you feeling?
I feel good. I feel ready to, you know, just have a new way of existing. So
Do you feel like you're ready to feel and experience all the things about a cigarette that you've been missing? To go back to that first time that you ever smoked and explore it and see if you actually like it?
yeah,
Because you'll no
yeah.
longer have it as an unconscious coping mechanism once we've done this. It
Okay.
will never again be available to you to unconsciously participate in this act. So you will not have this as a coping mechanism anymore. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Like if you smoke, it'll probably cause you cognitive dissonance. It's going to be like more than in a whole new way than you've ever dealt with it. You're okay with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I want you to say out loud, I am ready to be aware of what I've been missing around tobacco.
I am ready to be aware of what I've been missing about tobacco.
Now I want you to take a couple more deep breaths and find that loving awareness inside of you. And when you're finished, I want from that place of loving awareness for you to light a cigarette and be that very first time that you ever smoked that person again, investigating it. Do I like this? I want you to notice the taste and the temperature and the smell, and see if you can identify all of the hundreds of chemicals that are added to that to preserve it and make it taste exactly like your brand. I want you to smell your hair.
Yeah, and it's really hot out here, just like it was that night in a
Yeah.
hot, stifling little room, and
So, what do you like
it
about the
makes you feel more suffocated, you know.
what do you like about the experience you're having? Do you like the taste? Do
I
you like
do like, I mean, I don't like physically. Physically, I feel like I like the taste, but I don't know. That's just because of, like you said, I've conditioned myself to like the taste.
Yeah. Well, is it still harsh like it was when you
Maybe I like the taste because it's familiar, because it feels close to me. It feels like something that was with me during so many times in my life, both joyful, social, amazing times, and also dark, self-destructive times. Either way, it's familiar, which is why I think I like it.
okay. Can you feel the
But I
heat?
hate the taste in my mouth immediately. Hate the taste.
Ah,
Just coats my the roof of my mouth, my tongue.
yeah.
And I hate when the smoke, when it doesn't blow away and it comes around me, and I just want to wave it off, even though I'm breathing it into my lungs.
How do your lungs feel about it?
My lungs are sad.
Yeah. Do you
Um,
feel like you can really be in your body while you're smoking?
Definitely not.
Okay. Now, I invite you to get
Definitely.
as much into your body as you can right now and smoke and really feel what recoils and what wants to leave. And also feel into the 3 to 4 pounds of microbes that live in you and on you and see what the effect is on them. And feel your heart and feel the effect in your heart.
I do feel like my heartbeat goes a little faster.
How does your heart feel about that? Does it feel like self respectful self care?
My heart feels offended,
Ooh,
like deeply offended for working so hard to keep me alive.
yeah. How do you feel about yourself that you've been offending your heart every couple of hours for however many years?
Mm, negatively.
Okay. Can you forgive yourself? Can you forgive yourself for doing the best you could with what you knew and what you had?
I feel like I could forgive myself for that if only I could actually not keep doing it.
Can you forgive yourself for participating in things that make you feel more comfortable when you're outside of your comfort zone, when things are hard? Can you forgive yourself for doing what you had to do to self soothe?
Yeah, I don't blame myself for doing what I did at the time.
Okay.
And
Only going forward.
yeah, but it's like I'm smarter now. I've learned a lot. I'm older and wiser, and so I'm not the same person anymore
Yeah.
that needed to do things like this. Like, now
Well,
it's just because I find it pleasurable or because it's familiar, which in this chaotic world brings me so much comfort just to have something familiar. But I know it's an excuse because I have things like my music, my writing, my my own body that I could stretch and breathe through, which I can't really do right after smoking a cigarette.
mm, yeah. Well, I want to argue that if you find yourself smoking again after this, that you were doing the best you could with what you had and what you knew in your circumstances, because you're not always in a place where it's really easy for you to play music or stretch or all those other things that you said. But maybe you're in a group of people and they're smoking, you know, and maybe you have people around you that are smoking, and maybe that's what feels like self-care at the time, you know. The
Yeah.
the thing and judgment's never helpful and self-judgment's never helpful, and it makes total sense why we do it because we're trying to change our behavior, um, but being harsh with ourselves has never done us any good, to change behavior from a loving place. It's only done it to change behavior like kind of in an emergency way, you know. Um, but the thing that we really want to avoid is going unconscious about it. So the commitment you can make to yourself is that you will not smoke unconsciously. And as long as you're going to hold that, as long as you're going to be aware every time you smoke that you're just going to do it consciously, and you're going to be aware of your heart, and you're going to be aware of what it's doing to your circulation and your body and the smell, and you want to like try and get even clearer. It's really difficult on a Zoom call, but you could really do a deep meditation and then light a cigarette and be like, it, you have to feel the you have to feel the dissonance enough that it slaps you awake sometimes, and judgment's never helpful in any of that. It's just there's so much to unpack. There's so much to it. It's so complicated, and it's so addictive, right? Now you've been listening to me. Have you been paying attention to the smoke? Have you been paying attention to it?
Probably not as much, but I mean, I do feel aware, very aware of the heat
Yeah,
and the taste and how my lungs feel.
good. And you can put it out if you want to. If you're not enjoying it, you can put it out. For a very long time, I did this practice myself that I'm walking you through in 2014, and I continued to smoke for a couple of weeks. But it went from like smoking every couple of hours and responding to that negative feedback and like wanting to like make the the call of the addiction stop, right? It went from that to stretching it out longer and longer and longer and longer. And then every time I would light it, it was like the taste was so present. The taste was so present, and I was smoking rollies at the time. I was doing the rolling American Spirit. It was like not particularly harsh, but the taste and the heat was just so present for me, and I kept asking for that awareness, and that's the important part here. That's the active part of this. Is keep asking for the awareness. Keep asking your brain to show you what you're doing, and keep asking it to not let you go unconscious around it. Like that's the key here. The self-judgment is not part of it. That's maybe even unhelpful. So
I often find myself, feeling how like crappy the experience of smoking a cigarette actually is. It's just then how do you deal with, hours from now when it's like when I forget how crappy it is and I go light it up again. And then I put them out quicker now because I'm like, this is gross. Why am I doing it? But I still go back to do it. And
I
I
think that
feel very helpless if I don't have it
I think
sometimes.
what's been happening is you've been going into a self-judgment mode about it. I think that you get to a certain point, you're putting it out sooner, you're like, oh, this is gross. And then you go into the who am I? What is wrong with me that I keep doing this? Like you go into a thought process that has you go unconscious because you don't want to feel the experience of beating yourself up. The experience of beating ourselves up is awful. So we're going to want to go unconscious and then do things
Mhm.
to soothe ourselves. So the trick here is to be conscious, as much conscious as you can about everything in every way. So that way you're not going to unconsciously pick that up. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
And so you just notice if you slip into self judgment, it makes sense. It's like it's really hard to understand how it is that we let these substances speak louder than us, you know, because that's what happens. That's what we do, you know. And sometimes we just really need a coping mechanism. Sometimes when we're really stressed out and things are really not working, we need to drop into something that's going to work quickly. Cigarette works quickly. It works quickly until it doesn't work anymore. I cannot unconsciously smoke a cigarette. The amount of self work that I've done that I would have to undo to be able to unconsciously smoke a cigarette is, it's just not, it's been 3 or 4 years now that I've been in a really healthy relationship with it. I drove across the country this last time and I bought a pack of cigarettes and I checked with that loving place inside of me. And it was like, yeah, you're actually going to want a cigarette and you're going to want to have an organic cigarette so that you're not bumming something disgusting from someone, you know? So I bought something that I knew I liked the taste of. And and I smoked that 8 of them, I think, before I gave the pack away. And they didn't have any call on me. It was just I was driving, I was tired, and it's a stimulant, and you know it helps keep you awake while you're driving. I mean, it can be a tool. You know, it's not something that you want to do all the time. It's not something that you want to go unconscious about. But you know,
Yes, this experience is definitely making me realize how often I just feel like I have to go unconscious. And so that's definitely something that it makes me realize what I kind of have to work on more
Mhm.
besides just the, surface level quitting smoking is, just be- becoming more conscious daily.
Yeah, that's why we didn't call this the quitting smoking talk. We called it the cultivating a healthy relationship with tobacco talk. Yes. That's the difference. And we all have those things that we go unconscious about. Every one of us has it. Some people do it about watching TV. Some people do it about eating a bowl of chips or eating anything. Or, you know, some people go unconscious by exercising. Some people go unconscious by playing music. You know, we all do our own thing. Um, you know, porn, lots of people go unconscious with porn, you know, and the kind of the life hack is finding something that we can go unconscious with that either doesn't hurt us or actually helps us. So playing music would be, you know, something that would be in your wheelhouse that you could go unconscious with, because your brain shuts off, right? And you're into it. Anything that your brain shuts off and you can be into the thing will have the same effect as going the numb unconscious that you do when you're smoking. Make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, an orgasm would work too, honestly. So that's those work too. But we covered everything, but I don't feel like we're done. How are you feeling?
I feel very ready to, with this like shift in perspective to just really be more conscious about it. I think that was kind of the missing piece for me is just, why do I keep doing something that I know is unhealthy and knowing that it's really just my brain's defense mechanism. I mean, it's
Your brain's helping you.
yeah,
Yeah, because you asked it to.
but I think that really connecting with my heart is important because I did feel like I offended my heart, and I feel like my heart should kind of have precedence over my brain in this particular experience.
Yeah.
I don't trust my brain as much as I trust my heart because you know, my brain is telling me that I'm still the same person that picked up a cigarette and needs to do it or that, I don't know, it just doesn't resonate. But my
The
heart is telling me that I'm wiser and that I have other tools and things accessible to me. And I'm tired of feeling guilty. So,
yeah. Well, that's cool. Being tired of feeling guilty is a good thing because you don't need to feel guilty.
yeah, I just feel really over it. I mean, it just seems like it's such a just a thing that's not really that I'm kind of forcing to still be a part of me. But
Mm.
it's like it's been long time that it hasn't really, you know, been something I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Well, you have smoker in
you
your
know?
identity file, right?
Yeah.
That's something that is in your identity file is something you have an affiliation with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then quitting smoking would be you'd put into your identity file of I'm a former smoker. And the cultivating a healthy relationship with tobacco has nothing in your identity file about whether you smoke or not. It's that you choose in the moment through loving awareness whether or not you want to engage with tobacco and to what degree, right?
I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah. Because you don't have to be a non-smoker. It just doesn't work for you to smoke.
Yeah, but it doesn't work for me to be doing it habitually
Right.
and unconsciously,
Yeah.
I can picture scenarios where it may be really it may be fun or good or, helpful, but in the way that I'm doing it daily isn't really at all, serving me.
Yeah.
And I have piles of books just, that I haven't read because I'm filling the space with this other thing. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the freedom of just, having more space in my life to grow. And, for a while I was mourning the person that I was, and, how to kind of like identify with a new person, kind of the newer version of me. And I feel like I'm just kind of over that mourning period, and I'm just ready to you know, say goodbye.
Yeah. So does the idea of smoking a cigarette still feel nourishing?
Definitely not.
Cool. And if that shifts, another tool you can use is, native cultures use tobacco as prayer. So every time you smoke a cigarette, you're kind of making a prayer. And so if your thought processes when you're smoking are all like against yourself or, of guilt and shame or whatever it is that you're feeling when you're smoking, that's kind of the energy, that's the prayer energy that you're using, right? So instead, if you're going to smoke, use it as a prayer. Pray for good things, and pray for global awareness of you know we know not what we do. Pray for we know what we do, because that's what gets us out of it. When we finally understand the impact that we're having. So yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah, I really appreciate this.
I'm glad it's helpful. Anything else you want to?
No, no, I think I really feel like I feel it definitely have more strength, and I've prepared my space so that this will be my last smoking session for at least a while, so I can give myself a chance to, you know, shift and reframe and, detox from the nicotine that's in my body. And it's the new moon,
Yeah,
which I feel gives us more power, at least in my, frame of reference. And yeah, I really appreciate this.
yeah, I'm glad. And I would put together a smoking blend that has some mullein and other things that are not going to offend your heart and that are not going to make your lungs unhappy, because you're going to want to smoke. That's really normal. And then you still want to go through the same process when you light something, because it's still the heat on your lips. It's still, make sure you're aware of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you're doing something unsustainable, make sure you really clearly feel the impact of it, right? That's a lesson for like the whole world, is if we really felt the impact of every unsustainable thing we did, we would stop doing it, because that is ridiculous. Why would we? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would definitely make yourself a smoking blend. You're gonna want to smoke.
That's definitely one of my new moon rituals for today.
But
To make a smoking blend
yeah,
with intention.
yeah, great. And then it can be a prayer. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
awesome.
Are you feeling complete about this?
I am. Thank you very much, Bonnie. I
You're welcome.
appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. I'm gonna stop the recording then.
Okay.